I also designed, while I was at AR, the AR turntable, the basic principle of which was that all aberrations in turntable performance must result from unwanted relative motion between the pickup cartridge and the record. And so I mounted the pivot of the tone arm and the bearing of the platter as rigidly as possible relative to each other. I mounted them on a steel I-beam formed in the shape of a T so that I could suspend it from the top plate in a balanced arrangement. And this isolated the working business of the turntable from the outside world and from the motor. Those equipment reviewers who were able to make measurements and the consumer organizations that reported on this equipment reported that it had the lowest wow, rumble, flutter, and acoustic feedback of any of the other turntables that they had measured. And yet, the AR turntable was one of the least expensive turntables in the market. It was $78 then, I think. And of those turntables with any pretensions to quality, it was by far the least expensive turntable. Later, when the so-called high-end began to take over in audio, some of the equipment reviewers used to talk about the turntable as the most important element in the sound reproducing chain. I think that's nonsense. The job of the turntable is to stay out of the picture. And if the turntable has low rumble, wow, flutter, and acoustic feedback, it will do that. Oh yes, and it must also maintain constant speed, which would be flutter, in the face of slight changes in load which occur even because of a heavily recorded passage. But these equipment reviewers talked about the effect of the turntable on the sound stage, this, that, and the other. One of the magazines in England praised me as a turntable designer, and then published one of this type of review. And if they held the pistol to my head and asked that I design a turntable with very good sound stage, I couldn't do it because I wouldn't know how.
Hello, Chris Barker here again with DIY Hi-Fi Life, and I'm just listening to my refurbished AR EB101 turntable. Thanks for tuning in again. Let's just take this off the record. And by the way, I'm listening to a great album on the ECM label by John Scofield with Steve Swallow and Bill Stewart, and it's called Swallow Tales. It's music written by Steve Swallow, the famous bass player. I'll never forget seeing John Scofield and Bill Swallow at the North Sea Jazz Festival in Holland back in around 1982 when I was a college student and doing the summer year rail circuit. Went to Montreux Jazz and North Sea Jazz Festival, saw a lot of great music. Recommend going to those festivals if they ever return, hopefully one day in Europe. So, once again, thanks again for tuning in to DIY Hi-Fi Life. And here we are today in this episode discussing a 60-year-old turntable design. And hopefully answering the question, does a 60-year-old turntable design still have relevance in 2021? As you can see, I think it could, and I'll kind of go through some of the ideas that might justify such a response. And let's talk about what I had to work on here with this particular turntable. First, a little bit of history. The AR turntable first came out, introduced in about 1961 from AR Corporation, very famous hi-fi outfit, legendary at this point, founded by Ed Villchur and Henry Claus, who was no slouch himself and had also founded some other audio companies you'll be familiar with, like KLH. Ed Villchur came up with a very elegant design, basically of a sprung suspension turntable with a subchassis and 3 springs to mitigate or ward off airborne and other vibrations that could cause feedback and other issues of turntables at the time. This was a brand new approach, but proved to be very popular and actually inspired a bunch of other turntables from such companies as Linn with their Sondek LP12 that's still in production today at a mighty high price now, and other turntable manufacturers also followed suit. In the mid or early 1980s, AR reintroduced their turntable. It was just called the AR turntable. And I personally purchased one of those back at that time. I still have that turntable, and I've done a lot of modifications through the years. And that was a very nice turntable with improved aesthetics, a very nice wood plinth. And I went through several variations, including what we have here today, the EB101, which is similar to that reintroduced turntable with a nice wood plinth. A little bit more simplistic than the more expensive AR turntable. But the core elements are still the same. The sprung subchassis and is suspended on the wood plinth, and the Hurst motor. All of these parts are generally still available out there, although things are starting to get a little bit rare. The Hurst motor is still being made by the Hurst Corporation, so that's no problem. And really, just coming up with the rest of the parts, you would have to scrounge around a little bit. I've made use over the years of a company called Vinyl Nirvana, who are kind of the experts on AR turntable and other turntable restorations, so you can get a number of parts from them as well. I believe they may have a connection to George Merrill, who is very famous after the AR turntable in the 80s came out, of building new parts to improve on the design of the AR turntable. And I purchased a lot of parts directly from George back then, and kind of led me to why I wanted to have another go at this turntable. So in this particular turntable that I have here, you see playing, I found it on eBay. I think I paid about $350 for it. It was in kind of rough shape, so hence the fairly low price. I bought it over a year ago, and it kind of sat in a box for a while as I got kind of distracted by other projects. When I finally pulled it out of the box, I kind of had some ideas about where I wanted to go with it. As I mentioned, I had a previous AR turntable with George Merrill parts, and I had some parts left over, and I thought maybe I could reutilize them on this particular project. And that's the attack that I initially went down. But as all good things, that one plans, sometimes things go awry. And in this case, I kind of hit a wall when I had substituted the standard metal subchassis with the upgraded Merrill acrylic type material subchassis, and I also had a new arm, a Origin Live Alliance arm that I wanted to make use of. I had it all put together, but I was having horrible hum problems, and I was very frustrated, and I really wasn't sure what was going on, and I finally decided let's go back to basics, and I scrapped my original plans. So after encountering these problems, I decided to go back to square one and go back to my original turntable here with the EB01 and see if that would be a better approach. It came with a serviceable Rega tone arm, so I felt I could make use of that, and that might work just as well. I did find out that the Rega tone arm, one of the clips on the cartridges hookups was broken, so I had to look in my toolbox and find some cartridge clips, which I was able to fix very easily. And also the turntable was missing the rubber feet, so I went ahead and replaced those. And also, there were some problems with the motor switch and the circuit board. It had delaminated, so that connection was broken, so I had to do a little bit of careful soldering there. But, considering the age of this turntable, these things are to be expected sometimes, and were easily overcome once I understood what I was dealing with. So basically, once I got those problems back on board and things set up, got the cartridge line, I went with a Nagaoka MP200, and got that aligned using the Lofgren Bearworld alignment rig. And then things came together very quickly. And I have to say I'm very happy now with the sound of this rig. And I think I can answer very fully that a AR turntable with sprung suspension based on a 60-year-old design is still a very viable solution for spinning records in the 2021 and onwards. If you can pick up one of these for a modest price, even with a few problems, I think you'll be very satisfied. I have seen some kind of expanded prices now for AR turntables, and I guess that's a bit of a trend like everything. Things are going up. I guess the supply of these is starting to dwindle a little bit. So you may be able to come across something like I did, which needs a little bit of an update. But I think as you see now, it came with a very nice dust cover. And I was able to clean that up very nicely. So this is a very nice turntable now. It's well sorted. One thing I decided to do, since I really didn't have a lot of money invested in this, I decided to go ahead and add a platform for it that's popular sometimes in devices that are vibration oriented, like a turntable. And I found online a very nice at Amazon cutting board that's actually kind of neat looking. It's got a black with a silver fleck in it. It looks rather interesting, and these very nice springs that support it, and this helps with the footfall problem. I think that's one issue that, and why I think possibly sprung turntable designs have kind of fallen out of favor a little bit, is the footfall issue. If you happen to be in a situation where your floors transmit a lot of vibration, it can be a little bit annoying. It's not a huge problem, and I think with this platform that I created for under $50, it helps out quite a bit. So you might want to look down below at the more information where I have links to these things. And speaking of that, I have links to all sorts of things in the more information area down below, free music and other types of things you might want to take advantage of. So feel free to look at those. I get a small credit for some of those links, so it helps out the channel if you're at all interested in any of those items. So I'm going to say that yes, a 60-year-old turntable design is still valid, and I think you could really enjoy listening and using such a turntable. I'm very impressed. I was doing some extensive listening with headphones, and there was no noise or no hum. Tracking was excellent. It was everything that I remembered from this design, and I think you'd be hard pressed if you got a good deal on one of these to do much better without spending quite a bit more money. One other thing I'd like to mention is I did decide to upgrade a couple other items on the EB101, and that included getting this very nice weight from Hudson HiFi. They are a purveyor of a number of hi-fi accessories that are very reasonably priced. I'll have links down below that you can look at them. And also I went with a rubber and cork mat to replace what came with the turntable, and I find that works out very well. So I think these are two very worthwhile upgrades to the turntable, and will reap benefits in your playback chain. So I again appreciate you coming to my channel and looking at my videos, and hope that you find them interesting, and kind of trying to explore some darker avenues or less well-trodden avenues of the hi-fi hobby, and bring some light to them, such as the AR EB101. And I'll just keep trying to come up with some ideas. I've got some more neat things coming along that I'm working on. And please, if you can, subscribe and give it a like. That would help out this channel. And take a look at some of those links down below. So once again, this is Chris Barker for DIY Hi-Fi Life, signing out.